Hi, my name is Viana, and today I'm going to talk about my essay, Human Rights Activism in Venezuela. Talk about activism in Venezuela is a sensible topic, especially in these days, but it's important to know the tools that we have for defend our rights. The work that we do as a defender of human rights in Venezuela in the midst of the crisis of economic, social, cultural, and environmental rights is not an easy task. The object of the work is to spread certain ethical values. We have to make sure that ethical values won't reflect on individual gregarious or individualist, solitary, or selfish attitude. An attempt has been made to deal not only with individual rights but also with collective ones, respect for minorities, and acceptance of what the majority decides for the good common. The majority must always respect the fundamental rights of the minorities. The human rights contained in the Universal Declaration should always be above the supposedly democratic decision. Something that is important to know is what a human right activist consists of. An activist is a person who does not accept either with his thoughts or with his words or with his actions the absolutism of the idea that whatever is done is done. Everything does not matter. Activists are people who take injustice personally. We work for a better world in which all people can enjoy the rights. We are independent of all political ideology, economic interests, or religion. We have presence in almost every country in the world, and no government is free from its scrutiny. Anyone can be an activist. It doesn't matter how old are you or where do you live or what is your profession. People who want to be an activist receive necessary guidance to carry out their activities. Beyond being an activist for human rights is also a dangerous effort. In Venezuela, especially, there are a large number of activists who have been persecuted, detained, and even tortured. One example of the defender feature in Amnesty International Venezuela is part of the Valiente campaign, is Alfredo Romero. He's a lawyer and a human rights defender in Venezuela. Currently, he heads the board of the civil organization Foro Penal Venezolano. The United Nations Declaration on Human Rights requires that states to support and protect defenders and activism. But in Venezuela, this work is increasingly impeded by the adverse conditions that we face with the serious human rights crisis that has been lived in the country for more than a decade. We activists use social works as a communication bridge to make all kinds of complaints and publicize any violation thereof. It is urgent to demand protection for people who defend human rights in the world and that states guarantee the necessary conditions to exercise activism and defense of the most vulnerable who live in adverse context. Defending rights, making a complaint of any kind of violation every day becomes more difficult here in Venezuela, since the institution that must receive complaints, such as the public minister or non-government ones, such as community council, NGOs, union, simply ignore the presentation of the complaints. In times of pandemic, complaints have increased since the confinement has caused different kinds of violations, such as gender violence, child violence, violation of the rights to live with dignity, with electricity, gas, water, gasoline, the right to have a good health, the right to have food, the right to work, even the right to live. These rights are the ones that both defenders and actors have to adapt for. Activism of the human right is a role to play and requires a sensitive threat and passion. There is no defender or activist who is not personally involved in denouncing and publicizing the injustice committed. This work, however difficult and risky, is not impossible to do. So I invite you to join our activist groups to fight for the rights of our people. One more thing to conclude is that important to remember that human rights are inalienable. Thank you. And I still want to invite you to join us to form part of all those groups or those uh, institutions that defend the human rights in Venezuela. Thank you.